Hi, welcome to the Literature Lounge, which is literally and totally dedicated to authors who write books that make great films and conversation starters. So let's just talk books. Hi, in today's episode, we have with us Anisha. Anisha Motwani is a multifaceted business leader and draws rich experience of over 28 years in diverse industries: advertising, automobiles, financial, and health services. Anisha founded Storm the Norm Venture in 2015, a company that specializes in brand and innovation projects. She also serves as an independent director on the board of some very leading organizations, which we will ask Anisha all about. Anisha is not only a distinguished business leader, but also an accomplished author. So we have to find out what is it that makes her do all of this and also write. How does she take out this time? Her book, She Storms the Norms. Yes, let me repeat again. She Storms the Norms celebrates the extraordinary journey of 17 women who defied societal beliefs and shattered barriers. So we already like the book. As an advisor to the World Bank on initiatives such as Swachh Bharat program and National Mission for Clean Ganga, she demonstrates a commitment to driving positive social change. Recognized as one of the 50 most powerful women in Indian business by Business Today, she continues to inspire and empower others through her leadership and advocacy. Welcome, Anisha, in today's episode, and tell me, how is it that you storm the norm?
No, thank you, Maua, first of all, for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here talking to you, and also for the kind introduction. How is it that I stormed the norm? Uh, just by sheer hard work.
No shortcuts there.
Absolutely none. 35 years. You said 28 years. Actually, it's 35 years and counting.
Wow, wow, wow. We're going to get down to the entire details कि सुबह उठ के क्या खाती हैं आप, चना खाती हैं, almonds खाती हैं, क्या खाती हैं, वो सब में आएंगे. But before that, you've had an incredible career spanning diverse industries, right? Could you share just a pivotal moment that shaped your journey into getting into all these areas altogether?
Mahua, that's very interesting. Your question really was making me think. And I said, what was that one moment? And you wouldn't believe it. I realized that it was actually when I started off. My accidental entry into advertising is actually what got me into this field of saying that I enjoy, understanding consumers and consumer psyche. But believe you me, this entry into the first job that I had was very accidental. I had an arranged marriage. I got married. I was a small town girl, had graduated from Ajmer and then masters from Rajasthan University. I came to Delhi after marriage. And at my marriage reception, my husband worked with LML at that point in time. And LML had a small in house agency called Srishti Advertising, and I was offered this job saying, till you find something, would you like to come and just try your hand with an in-house agency? And my consideration for and my reason for considering it was very practical. It's not that I loved advertising and let me do this, this is where I'm really going to do find my mojo. It was more very practical. I'm new to Delhi. We are in the same office. My husband's going to drive. We'll go together, come back together. And, till such time as I find a job, let me get into advertising. And I took to advertising like fish to water. And it was not so much about advertising and the grind of it all. And this was like, the 90s when the economy was just opening up and just about every single global brand was coming into the country. From McDonald's to Samsung, you just name it. That's when the economic, doors opened up. And all these large global brands coming into the country. For me, it was this whole thing about understanding consumers in a manner that can help businesses. So that is something that really got me very excited. While of course I hated the grind and the long hours and the struggle and back and forths of with the clients, but what I truly enjoyed was just getting to the almost to the core of the mind of that customer, that consumer, and that's something that has been the common refrain in everything that I've done so far.
So we can give advertising a huge, clap here, because yes, advertising does help you really understand the mind of a consumer. Because I have been in advertising myself
Oh,
for many
yeah.
many years in PR and
Oh,
advertising agencies. So
awesome.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome.
And there are those crazy hours which I never kept because I was a young mother. But it all that office always had an environment. And there's another thing that has done to me with advertising is this, that I can't stay stuck to one subject. I have to do multiple things
Multiple
because
things. It,
I get bored very easily, and that stagnancy just comes in if it's one topic. So
yeah.
yeah, so I can understand exactly what you're saying. So let's just talk a little bit about your book, Storm the Norm, which highlights, stories of businesses and rewriting industry norms. So what motivated you to explore this theme, and what do you mean by saying, rewriting industry norms? That's not very easy. So what is it that you suggest?
So, through my many, many years of working, 28 years when I actually, quit my active corporate role, uh, through four different kind of industries. And this happened when I was in my last operating role at Max. I was the only women executive leader amongst the leadership team, which is the top team. And all the conversations in the boardroom used to be about the struggles and the challenges that businesses face, how, whether it's a regulatory challenge or whether it is an economic challenge, whether it is market challenges, budgets. And I said, actually there is, and I started looking back and then saying, I have seen this. When I was in advertising, I worked across a portfolio of clients, a diverse range of clients. Then I moved to General Motors, which is again a global auto company that came to India and wanted to actually launch cars in India in competition to Maruti and Hyundai's of the world. And then there is this financial services. And each of these businesses, what it takes to succeed in an Indian environment is so different from what it takes to succeed in global world. Where things
Absolutely.
are much more structured. And I said, nobody is written about it. Even today, when we study case studies, and I was an MBA and I've done marketing, and when you read Kotler, it's so basic. It doesn't capture really the nuances of what it takes to really be successful in India. I started thinking back in terms of, at least out of the 20 brands, 10 brands I had closely worked with in my some association through the years. And I said, these are, how did these brands succeed? I know how unique it is, and they succeeded by taking a kind of a very, see, if they had actually taken a standard way of succeeding, they would have been better than somebody else. So let's pick up a tea brand. Okay, Tata Tea is one case study. Okay, now if they had actually taken a standard way of saying, let me try and get better than Unilever's Brook Bond, that would have been one approach. They would have been a slightly better brand than Unilever's Brook Bond. But no, they said no. They actually challenged that this thing, that why should tea, be seen as an English version, because Britishers had left this legacy of tea behind for us, and we were actually tea drinking nation, thanks to the whole British culture of tea, which is so different from the way we Indians drink tea, that that boiled strong tea with milk, with sugar. Even today, the dhaba chai is what you try and crave for, absolutely. And I said, nobody is talking about how tea should be consumed in India. And then came this brand Tata Tea. Okay, and if you read that study in that story in the book, how they actually turned the tables on everything that was British and English about tea. Similarly, soap. ITC Fiamma de Villes, soap is a very competitive category. It's a commodity. All the time you'd seen brands like Lux and all talking about beauty star, film stars, ka sabun and all of that. Nobody had actually created a unique story and a differentiated story around the sensory aspects of soap. You read that story. So I had experienced some of this, and I said, let me bring those out. Those kind of stories, and India has enough and more of these. And that's how that book came about.
Wow, that's so innovative, Anisha. Wow. So yeah, how did you and Priyadarshini, Narendra, select the women to be featured in the book, and what criteria did you consider for choosing these women who were there in the book?
So, Mahua, this is the second book. The What I just described was my first book, Storm the Norm, how 20 businesses stormed the norm. Then the second book, when COVID happened, there was this whole thing about everybody working from home. We were all locked in. I mean, God forbid we should never have that moment again. And it was the women who were actually, we realized in many women conversations with colleagues in WhatsApp groups during our office calls and meetings, that it was the women who actually had the short end of the stick at that point in time.
Absolutely.
If the working women who were operating from home were expected to do so much more than the men who were also working from home. Whether
Yes.
it is small things like doorbells ringing or children's this thing, or making sure कि खाने में क्या बनाना है. We were like, we heard women say we were better off in office. कम से कम ये, we were not double
And
hatting.
yeah.
So this is a live distraction every minute. And there were so many conversations happening. And then we said, I had been toying with the idea. It had been 7 years since my first book had been launched, and it was successful. It is selling. It's still a bestseller. We said I was always wanting to do another Storm the Norm series. But then, suddenly COVID happened, and we women got talking, and we said, why not she storms the norm? Why don't we talk about women, who are challenging the stereotypes and the norms? And the minute I said this, I realized that, it is so apt. It is this is so needed, this kind of a conversation. The challenge that really happened was coming to your question of how did we select the women. The minute we started saying a book on women, I mean, there are already half a dozen of them written. So many women, so many successful women have been written about, and and their stories and their success stories. A lot of credit to everything that they've done. But our starting point was not women. Even today, when we are talking about the book, we are not talking about who's featured in the book. Of course, I'll come to that. We handpicked women, but the starting point was always picking up some very, very typical, stereotypical norms, whether it was societal norms, structural norms, sociocultural norms. We said, let's identify a list of norms, what women need to go through, that women need to be soft and gentle. Women are not meant for tough jobs. Corner office is not meant for women because they cannot cope up with the responsibility. Women can't network and therefore they lose out. Or uh, I mean, finally, women come with an expiry date in mind, always, in their careers, that I'll have to quit when I get married, I'll have to quit when my child gets born, I'll have to quit when my husband gets transferred. So there's always an expiry date syndrome at the back of women's mind. And there were so many of these norms. So we listed down a set of norms. And then we said, let's find women backwards, okay, to fit those norms. And of course, one couple of things we were very clear about, that these have to be reasonably, known names, because we wanted to actually, because nothing, people want to read about successful people, you know
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
wants to read about, not so successful people. So we did want to, but that was not the starting point. Each of these women are very successful in their own right. The second filter was that it should be from a cross section of areas. It can't just be the corporate world, it has to be working women. Now they could work in Bollywood. We have the likes of Nimrat Kaur and Aduna Akhtar, Aduna Bhabani now, from the film world. Aduna, older women should never marry younger guys, especially in show business. Or you can't create a business of your own when you are in a film industry. She's created Be Blunt, and and made her own standing for her own self. Or a para athlete like Ekta Bhyan, wanted to be a doctor, met with a road accident, was wheelchair bound, and from there she became a gold medalist para athlete, at discus, sports, discus shots. Uh, LGBTQ, a lady, who was married with two children, came out of the closet after the age of 50 with grown up children, to finally acknowledge that she's gay and she has a partner and she would like to spend the rest of her life. And she got married to her, and it's her children who walked her to the aisle. um, so so we picked up diverse stories, diverse norms, that society will not accept, and my children will not accept. These are all norms that they challenged, and they actually walked through these norms with such aplomb and such ease that they created a new success for themselves.
How amazing. So tell me something, Anisha, why, in your opinion, is it important, for women to challenge norms and become these agents of change as advocated in your book? Why is it that you feel? Of course, I agree with this that women have to change the narrative. What is your take on it?
See, the thing is that today, as parents, we want to leave this world a more equitable world.
Yeah.
We don't want our children to go through the same thing that we went through. At least, you're a different generation. I'm even a generation before you. But it's very important that at least in India, you even today, when you look at your own support staff at home, their lives are still a struggle. I had a I have a support staff who comes to my house. I mean, she's got 5 kids. The husband's drinking all the time, and poor thing is just slogging subha se sham tak. Working, trying to make her ends meet. It's the women who always get the short end of the stick. Uh, come to tier one towns. Where women still need permission to go and work. I still remember, I come from a small town. My parents are in Rajkot. It's like पूछना पड़ता है ससुराल वालों से नौकरी करें कि ना करें। अगर वो बोलेंगे तो हम करेंगे। आई मीन you are qualified, parents have educated you, you have a right to live a life, where you are contributing back to society. I'm not saying if you love to be a homemaker, by all means, I've got nothing against it. But if it comes at the cost of your own aspirations, then it's a compromise. So I don't want women to lead a life of compromise. We've lived it, we are still living it, but at least the next generation is getting better with it, and they are expecting a little bit of equitable
Yeah,
society.
for sure. So, you know what, Anisha, a lot of girls today don't want to get married because they've seen their homemaker mothers really struggle with money. And this is a
So
topic that's very, very close to
yeah,
my
yeah.
heart.
But
And
that's the other extreme, Maua. We don't want a society, with high divorce rates, with high this thing, because there was something very unique about India, our family systems, our support systems, all of that. Now, how do we get the right blend of that upbringing, the core values? And I think this generation, which is what we call as our generation, is the right sandwich generation, because we want to preserve the values of India. Okay, and yet we want our daughters to be, and our daughter to be progressive, and our daughter-in-laws to be like our daughters. So this generation is best placed to drive that value system and that balance.
well, you know what? I'm not too sure how one would get that balance because I think society has to go through that entire churn for them to even come around, right?
Yeah.
So, and I completely agree with you in this. So, the book features women from various backgrounds and professions. Like you just mentioned, that there was this woman who came out of the closet and in her 50s, which is amazing, about Aduna. And then you've spoken about, a disabled para athlete.
Yes.
So I just want to know, how do you think that these diverse experiences collectively contribute to challenging norms and inspiring others? So just explain that for my listeners.
So what we did, Mahua, was that it's a story approach that we've taken. We went through many, many rounds of interactions and interviews. But one unique thing that we did in the book was that we actually started each chapter with, why did I select, let's say, a Nimrat Kaur? Or why did I select Vinita of Sugar Cosmetics or Suparna of Titan? Okay. Why did we choose them? Right up front, there is a norm that, what is the norm that they stormed, and the reason why we chose them is because of this norm. Okay. Now that's something that we have given in the book. We've also ended the story with, they solved and they managed to overcome that in one way, but we've given a couple of other hacks at the end of each story to say, this is how you can do it. These are some of the other norms that you could face, and this is how you can overcome them. So we've given live practical hacks at the end of each chapter. So therefore, when you say, how can women why is it important? Because it's, one, read the stories, and secondly, read the hacks. Because if not, because every life is unique, maybe Suparna found a way to manage her life in a certain way. Maybe your life is your set of circumstances, so there could be a couple of other ways to do it. So I think a combination of this can give you inspiration to at least move some needle somewhere.
Yeah. So, let's just talk a little bit about the fact that, in She Storms the Norms, you highlight the experiences of women who have also overcome societal beliefs, right? for them. And there are barriers, there are structural barriers and self-doubt, which I think all of us are constantly struggling with. So could you share one specific story that really deeply resonated with you personally, Anisha?
A couple of them. I do like, Ruma Devi's story. Ruma Devi, this a lot has been written about her, but the fact that she's a rural woman, who came to a house where she was not supposed to lift her ghungat. Her husband was an auto driver, and she comes to a house and gets married and comes to a house like this, and she creates a space for herself where, for women to create skilled, to use the women's prowess in embroidery and handicrafts and stuff like that, from a city like Barmer. And today she's become such a champion, the entire state of Rajasthan, and now a national parliamentary
Absolutely.
leader and all. So for me, that's really inspiring. Even Ekta's story, if you can't use your legs, she used a sport to use her hands, which is the throw. Um, People would think that a handicapped person is a burden, not just for society, it's a burden for family, but today she is such a pillar of strength for her family and such a source of inspiration for so many people. So some people like those, where they've really really stretched the boundaries, are the ones that truly stand out. Not to say that some of the others are not good, even Nimrat, after her father passed away, Nimrat Kaur, the
Yeah.
film actress,
Yes.
her entry into Bollywood as an outsider, somebody, normally we say there's so much nepotism in that industry that there's no place for outsiders in that industry. But how did she come in? How her circumstances created a need for her to come into a industry where she had nothing to do, no relatives, nobody, and she created a success for herself. So these are some that come top of mind. Oh yeah, of course, the Rocket Women of India.
Yeah.
Ritu Karadial, the whole movie Mangalyaan is made on, that Akshay Kumar movie. She's the inspiration. She was the mission director, that took the satellite to the orbit. Her
Of
story, she
course.
comes from
Yeah.
a small town, Lucknow. No, imagine, we say tough jobs are not for women. Women can't even do engineering jobs. Here, she's like the Rocket Women of India who was the mission director to take, the satellite to the orbit. And coming from a very small town, Lucknow, how she went to Bangalore, how she got through
Yeah.
ISRO.
Yeah. Yeah.
One very interesting story that is there is she had a housewarming ceremony, and that was the day, they were supposed to take the satellite in the orbit on a particular date, let's say date X. And she had scheduled her new housewarming ceremony. She said, I'll be free from this, it will happen on 2nd, and 5th we will do a housewarming, whatever. As circumstances would have it, that satellite they could not launch. The whole story is there in the book on that particular day. And as luck would have it, the launch was scheduled on the day she had her housewarming ceremony. And that dilemma of that puja hai ghar mein, housewarming hai, the whole, everybody's been invited, and I have to be in the office for that critical mission. And she actually, that choice that she had to make, and she made that choice, and we saw what we saw, that success. And then, reached home after the puja was over, so towards the last leg. So it's really, I mean, you see these little
Yeah.
things that push you and motivate you to say, yeah, no, there are ways and means to do it.
I get the goosebumps when I'm listening to you, Anisha, about this. I mean, one can imagine that if it's a housewarming and you're there, and as a
We have
as
many
a
many
woman.
such
Oh yeah, yeah,
stories.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So just let's say, how will the readers apply these lessons, from from these stories into their personal lives, and what messages do you hope that readers will take away from it? If you could just share maybe one message out of it.
I think what I really want to say is, norms are like, are like clouds. Okay, once you pass through them, what is on the other side is such a beautiful, clear horizon. It's almost like a virgin ground. So don't let the norms and these beliefs and these prejudices that people use to subjectify you, okay, come in the way of saying that this is the only way to do it. These are not the only ways to do it. You have to challenge these beliefs and these stereotypes. See these norms like these, like these fluffy clouds, you know go through them, and you emerge on the other side on a very clear, beautiful horizon, which is your own space.
Lovely, beautiful. That you spoke really truly like an author. So, so as an author, podcaster, and columnist, so I'm actually talking to another podcaster. You're adept at storytelling across different mediums. So, how do you tailor your messages to reach each platform, and do you tailor them at all? And how do you hope to achieve? And what is it that you hope to achieve with your storytelling?
So, see, some basic uh, things need to be there is a message and there's a medium.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Um, there is a form and there's a function.
mhm,
And the function needs to have substance.
yeah.
That's standard, whichever the form, whichever the medium. The function needs to have substance, it needs to have a core, and the form then can be manifested in that in different ways. So generally what you see is that even today in digital world, in the digital marketing, there's so much conversation happening. You see that there's no common core, okay, that is binding the story together. Today, there is this, everything's become so tactical and fragmented and bitsy. Today it is this that I'm saying, tomorrow it is that I'm saying, third day I'm saying this. There has to be, each brand, each company, each message needs to have a core, it needs to have a common reason why it needs to go out. Okay. And as long as that core is constant, you can customize to the medium. Like in the digital medium, you need fewer words. Okay. In a video medium, you can tell stories in a very different way. You do have the time and the luxury and of emotions to tell a certain part of the story. So I'm saying the manifestation of can be in different ways, but the core of your message, the function needs to be very, very strong, and it needs to be consistent across.
Okay, that was very, very helpful. But how do you think brands can really stay relevant, with time, considering how dynamic today things are, right? Every day there's change, and having been in the marketing business, both you and me know that what happened yesterday may not be the trend tomorrow. So how can brands stay relevant? What is it that they need to do?
So in many ways, this is a segue into the previous question that you asked. Uh, See, brands are your purpose.
Yeah.
It is. We say purpose is enduring. Positioning can be dynamic, okay, and contextual. So if you say my purpose is to actually make women feel good about themselves, okay, and get rid of that imposter syndrome in women. Let's say my purpose is that my starting point is, my need state is that women actually suffer from a imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Whatever. As a brand, my core purpose is to make women overcome this imposter syndrome and be able to acknowledge and first be true to themselves, in terms of what their core this thing is. So if that's my purpose, how do I position myself, uh, to this purpose? How do I take it into positioning? Can be contextual today, and the context could be, what's the segment I want to target, what's the market I want to target, what's the demography I want to target, what's the mindset I want to target. Now you can actually position, then that's why when you say positioning, there are several other constituents of positioning that come into the way. So that can be contextual and dynamic. Today my positioning is X, tomorrow I keeping that same core common, I can take my positioning forward. So that can vary. And then from positioning to, therefore, the messaging, the story, the eventual story that you tell, which is the creative part, that also needs to be tailored and customized. But within that also, the personality, there are two aspects of the brand, which is the voice and the voice, which is the expression, and the identity, the physicals of the brand. There needs to be a certain consistency in the way you do that. So I might tell my story in a certain way. People should look at me and say, you know, it is this brand. Because each time, if my physicals are not common, if my tone is not common,
Yeah.
today I'm being witty and funny, and tomorrow I'm being very serious and doctor like, in my storytelling, this thing, people will say, I don't trust this brand. So consistency in expression and physicals has to be constant. Purpose has to be constant. Your value systems have to be constant, but everything else can be contextual and dynamic.
So let's just talk a little bit about the fact that you're an independent director on the boards of several leading organizations, right? What are the key challenges that you've encountered in your role, and how do you navigate them while upholding ethical standards and shareholder interests?
Today, to be fair, Mahua, at least the boards that I am on are fairly pedigreed boards. And most of these companies do want, to have the right set of board members because they genuinely believe that the board can add value, not just in terms of compliance and governance, which has become more or less a hygiene in large companies, but also in terms of strategic input and guidance and oversight into the company's performance and future growth. um, so the way, for me, I started my board journey with just absolutely no new things that I did for just for the board role. I believe that you need to be on top of your game. People need to know me for as a brand builder, as a consumer expert, before they know me as Anisha Motwani. So when
Correct.
I go to the board, I go as with my expertise, not with my identity. And I've seen that the minute you are on top of your game, you know what you're talking about, you are a domain expert, you can speak with expertise on your subject, okay, you get the respect.
I agree with you on that. Absolutely agree with you. Yeah, yeah, I do. So, Anisha, you advise the World Bank on Swachh Bharat program, and we know that Swachh ki to bahut zyada zarurat hai. There are places that really needs this program. So, how do you think individual actions can contribute to a more cleaner and more sustainable, Swachh Bharat program all around us? So, would you like to share a few things that people can do, in their own personal way?
I was a consultant with the World Bank at that point in time. This was right after I had left my full-time operating role, and Modi ji had just come to power. And World Bank, as we know, gives a lot of technical support and financial support to the government for many of these projects, Clean Ganga, Swachh Bharat, and stuff
Yeah.
like that. So while lots of toilets were being built, um, uh, I think it was government's, mandate or vision to say that while toilets are being built, is behavior really changing? Are people really adopting toilets? Are they being used, or are they being used like storehouses? So we also need to work in parallel on behavior change. Now that's a soft aspect. It's not a technical aspect, which the bank normally does.
Yeah.
So that's how, through some reference or whatever, as luck would have it, somebody referred my name and I started working. It was my first experience to work on such a with the government and with the bank on these kind of large national projects. Lots of positives in terms of learnings and experiences. Of course, lots of challenges as well. But net, uh, behavior change is what, core human insights or whatever, brands we are supposed to do. Again, what's the core insight that we found when we actually started working on the behavior change campaign, is where all the thinking is. But coming to your questions about individual behavior, this thing, I think small things, because we today every boardroom conversation is about ESG. We are how to make companies carbon neutral. We are taking carbon neutral targets. There are Dow Jones measures, that we have to adopt. We have to report that in our annual reports. Okay, all that is happening at an organization level. But when it comes to our own homes, do we, whether it is a drop of water, whether it is, the number of times that we actually wash our linen in the house, the amount of water that we use in a washing machine versus can it be done on half loads and quarter loads? I mean, I was looking at data, washing machine data from an industry, and say how many people actually use half loads and quarter loads for the smaller lot of this thing. Not many people do it. They just
No.
use the usual full
Yeah.
load. This
Yeah.
thing, these every such small action. We plant trees. Of course, there is a lot of awareness for green and all of these, but the smaller aspects we start missing out. Huh?
Yes.
Every time I walk out and I see the after Diwali, um, almost like, I live in a society where lights are on through the night, not just single light, but every house is lit, almost like there is Diwali, all through the night. Why do we need to do that? I come from airport to my house, I see the office buildings, at 12 o'clock at night, at 11:30 at night, maybe two people are working inside, but the whole floor is lit.
Yeah.
The entire floor is lit. These are very basic things, but we just do not, neither do we teach our children, nor do we imbibe it ourselves.
I agree with you. So these are so many small little things that one needs to really keep, cognizant of it, because at home also they keep lights on in the rooms that you're not using. And,
Yeah,
these are things that we learned, of course, me being raised in a very middle class background. वो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बिल का बहुत ज्यादा डर होता था, तो हमेशा मम्मी पापा ने
हमेशा।
वो सिखाया था कि भाई लाइट ऑफ
हाँ,
कर दो, पंखा ऑफ कर दो। बिकॉज वो
हाँ,
पंखा ऑफ करना हमेशा मैं भूल जाती थी, एज अ
हाँ,
चाइल्ड। वो अभी रह गया है कि कहीं और मैं देखूं कि पंखा कोई चला के चला गया, तो आई बी रनिंग टू स्विच दैट fan
yes,
off, because you've learned that, as a child. So let's just talk a little bit, Anisha, about the fact that you're a mother and you're a leader, and then you've done so much, right? What advice would you give for working parents, striving to juggle their professional, personal lives? Because especially for women, they're always guilty. Like you spoke about the imposter syndrome, that you always feel, oh, am I good enough? Am I doing things right? What is it that stayed on with you as a strength while you were juggling so many hats?
so not that all these things, I must caveat and say that all these things sound much simpler than hindsight, by the way. I went through the same levels of guilt. I had My daughter was born exactly 1 year into marriage. I was in a very tough industry like advertising. Okay, the first 14 years of my life when my two kids were born. I had a young daughter. I used to go to the agency, after I changed my first job. I was working in that in house, like I told you, and I just moved to Bates, which is Clarion at that point in time, which used to be a large agency, different side of town. Used to take a chartered bus, in the morning, drop my kid to school. So, and guilt, go when we used to go for outdoor shoots, feeling guilty, waking up in the morning, only doing day trips, not spending the night in hotels. And I talk a lot about that in my DNI talks that I do, which I now feel very passionate about. So mine is all, in hindsight it seems very easy. And times were also not so comfortable at that point in time. The corporates were not as flexible as they are today, you know at least the larger, more progressive corporates. So one thing that I think I realized is that there is no such thing as work life balance, by the way. There is a work life choice. You've made that choice, and that choice is your choice. You have to be true to the choice that you have made and give it your 100%. How will I balance in a 24-hour day, when you know that you need to sleep for 8 hours? Okay, you need to work for 10 hours, तो बहुत normal है, 12 hours. ओके, 18 आवर्स तो निकल गए आपके, बाकी बचे आपके 6 घंटे. उसमें योर चॉर्स, योर मॉर्निंग चॉर्स, ये वो फलान ढीकर, बाकी बचता है आपको 4 घंटा. अब वो 4 घंटे में देर आर मेनी थिंग्स टू बैलेंस. माई सोशल लाइफ, माई ओन सेल्फ, माई चिल्ड्रन, their homework, their priorities and responsibilities, my responsibility towards nature, stuff like that, whatever. That is the only time left. So what do we talk about mathematically also? There is no balance. So this whole myth na try and do work life balance hota nahi hai. I think it is more about whatever time you have, that quality time, which is that peace time. I used to come from office even in advertising days. I used to take flack from my boss, but I used to switch off my phone. The minute I enter the house, I switch off the phone. Even now, by the way, I have a habit of switching off my phone by 8:30 latest. And I wake it up so my phone sleeps when I sleep. Okay.
Very good.
So simple things like these, when you're there, you are fully there. And the second, this thing is, I think sometimes you have to prioritize. Okay. Everybody can prioritize differently. I'm not saying my formula is the right formula. I decided that my life, will not move around my career. My career will move around my life. I knew I had two small children. My husband is an only child. I had joint family, elderly parents. And I realized that if I move my life around my career, I am not just uprooting one person or my just immediate family, I'm uprooting 7 people. So I said, let my career and professional life move around my life. This is my life, my family, these are the people who I live for, and whatever. Everything that I do will be around them. So if I got jobs, transferable jobs in different cities, I got a very, very nice, almost like somebody would give their left arm for that job like that, in a global multinational, way up there. I did not take it because it meant going to Bombay. I was getting a training sabbatic, a 6 month training secondment in London, 8 months. My daughter was young. I did not take it. Okay. So there are many such things that we did. I
course.
finally left General Motors to move to Max because one of the very strong reasons was they wanted me to take a Asia Pacific role
Hmm.
and move to Shanghai and do an Asia Pacific role. And I said, no, I cannot just uproot my family and go to Shanghai. And therefore, I actually shifted industries, moved to a completely different industries. But that came from a very clear priority understanding that I had. And the only thing that I tell women is that believe you me, if you're good with your craft and if you're passionate about what you do, you will find you will find your destination.
Yeah, I
you know
agree with you fully on that. Absolutely agree with you, Anisha.
yeah, no use living with regrets.
Absolutely, 100%. So let's do a quick rapid fire one word answer. What's your favorite book? अपना नाम किताब का नाम नहीं लेना, कोई और किताब के बारे में बताओ.
So Eckhart Tolle is what I like reading. The New Earth is something that I really enjoy. Um, I like reading even Many Lives, Many Masters, Brian Weiss. So you read a lot of these kind of. I'm reading Osho now. I'm currently even going through In Conversation with God. So I've started reading a lot of these kind of books. They really, I think, make me introspect.
One piece of advice you'd give to aspiring entrepreneurs?
I think persistence, persistence, persistence. Don't give up.
Your go-to productivity hack?
uh, just give it your 200%. Just never lose your passion.
The most rewarding aspect of your social work?
The fact that my social work is an extension of what I do. So today, the social work that I'm doing is in my own domain. So I like say, for example, I anchor brand insight for Isha. I mean, I love building brands, so I'm doing that. Some of the NGO work that I do, I'm on the advisory board of this thing. I actually just take my own experience, knowledge, and extend that this thing because then I, at least I'm best placed to give that because that's what I have. I don't have anything else.
And the last one, chai or coffee?
100% chai. Matlab ki there is absolutely 200% desi chai.
That was from the heart, Anisha. I could see the passion when you spoke about chai. So, thank you so much, Anisha, for being on today's podcast. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. And we
Thank
want to see many more titles coming out from you. And this was Anisha Motwani with She Storms, The Norms. And thank you so much for being on today's podcast.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning into the Literature Lounge, which is an all-year-round literature festival dedicated to writers across the globe. You can get in touch with us via LinkedIn or DM us at our Instagram page, The Mohua Show. Or you can also email us at hello@themohuashow.com to discuss your books and also meet authors you haven't yet met at the Literature Lounge.